Long-term parking at Wichita Eisenhower Airport is supposed to have a 30-day maximum stay, but some vehicles in Lot D have been sitting in the same spots for years, with current registration stickers and no dust on their windshields. The owners never came back from their flights, and when airport security tries to tow these abandoned cars, they find the engines are still warm and the radios are playing stations that went off the air decades ago. What disturbs me most isn't that these ghost cars seem to maintain themselves. It's that sometimes I see people sitting in the driver's seats, staring straight ahead, with boarding passes clutched in their hands. When I approach to offer help, the cars are always empty, but I can still smell jet fuel and hear the faint sound of aircraft engines that don't match any planes currently flying overhead. My name is Dale Zimmerman, and I've worked the night shift at Eisenhower for 3 years now. Before that, I did 2 tours with the Kansas Air National Guard at McConnell, so I'm used to watching planes come and go at odd hours. When I took this job, I thought it'd be easy money: patrol the lots, write tickets for expired meters, help tourists find their cars after they've been gone for a week and forgotten where they parked. Lot D sits at the far northwest corner of the airport property, past the rental car returns and the employee lots. It backs up against an old drainage ditch that runs along George Washington Boulevard. During the day, it's just another stretch of cracked asphalt with faded yellow lines. But at night, when the overhead sodium lights flicker on and the last shuttle bus makes its rounds, the place takes on a different quality. The lot holds maybe 200 vehicles on a busy week. Most are the usual suspects: Ford F-150s with Kansas plates, minivans with "My kid is an honor student" bumper stickers, sedans belonging to business travelers who fly out Monday and return Friday. Normal cars that come and go according to predictable patterns. Then there are the others. 17 vehicles to be exact. Same spots, same angles, same everything. A 1987 Buick LeSabre in space D, 47. A 1995 Dodge Caravan in D89. A cherry red 1979 Pontiac Firebird in D112. Each one looks freshly washed despite sitting through Kansas thunderstorms and winter ice. Registration tags current. Tires properly inflated. My supervisor, Rita Brennan, has been here since the airport opened in '54. She gave me the employee handbook my first night. Standard stuff about uniform policy and break schedules. Then she handed me a second packet, photocopied pages held together with a rusty stapler. "These are the protocols for Lot D," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Follow them exactly. Don't ask questions." I figured it was some corporate safety nonsense. I was wrong. The protocols were printed on yellowed paper that smelled like old filing cabinets and cigarette smoke. 7 rules, each one stranger than the last. Protocol 1. Never approach any vehicle in Lot D between 2:47 a.m. and 3:13 a.m. If you must patrol during this window, stay on the perimeter walkway. Protocol 2. If you hear radio static coming from the 17 designated vehicles, do not investigate. Continue your patrol route. Protocol 3. Should you encounter anyone sitting inside the 17 designated vehicles, maintain a distance of at least 15 feet. Do not make eye contact. Do not speak to them. Protocol 4. If a vehicle's headlights turn on by themselves, immediately leave Lot D through the south exit. Do not return until the lights are off. Protocol 5. Never photograph or record video of the 17 designated vehicles. Security cameras in Lot D must face away from these spaces. Protocol 6. If you find a boarding pass on the ground near any of the 17 designated vehicles, place it under the driver's side wiper. Do not read the destination or date. Protocol 7. At the end of your shift, report any violations of these protocols to your supervisor immediately. Do not discuss what you witnessed with other staff members. At the bottom of the page, someone had written in shaky ballpoint pen, "The planes they're waiting for already landed." I read through the protocols 3 times that first night, sitting in the break room with its buzzing vending machine and water-stained ceiling tiles. Rita stood by the coffee maker, spooning Folgers into a filter. "This is a joke, right?" I held up the papers. "Some kind of initiation thing?" She poured water into the machine without looking at me. "Wish it was. Come on. Ghost cars? People who aren't really there? You ever hear about Flight 891? Rita finally turned around. She looked older in the fluorescent glare, deep lines around her mouth, gray roots showing through her dyed auburn hair. I shook my head. "Continental Airlines, November 1963. Scheduled departure from Wichita to Dallas at 6:15 p.m. 47 passengers checked in, but only 29 boarded. The other 18 never made it to the gate." She poured herself a cup of coffee, black. Their cars stayed in long-term parking. Management tried to tow them after 60 days, but every morning those vehicles were back in their original spots. Same with the personal belongings, suitcases, coats, newspapers from that day. That was over 60 years ago. Some of those original cars are still here. Rita sipped her coffee. The Buick in D47 belonged to a salesman named Vernon Fletcher. The Firebird in D112 was owned by a college student, Amy Reeves. She stopped, shook her head. Amy Hollister. She was heading home to Topeka for Thanksgiving break. The way she said it made something tighten in my gut. What happened to them? Nobody knows. FAA investigated, police interviewed family members, but there were no leads. 18 people just stopped existing between the parking lot and the terminal. I wanted to argue, to point out how ridiculous this sounded, but Rita's expression killed any smart-ass comment forming in my throat. "You'll understand after your first week," she said. "Just follow the protocols." My shift started at 10 p.m. I spent the first 3 hours doing the usual rounds, ticketing expired meters in the short-term lots, helping a confused elderly couple find their Subaru, filing paperwork about a fender bender near the cell phone waiting area. At 1:30 a.m., I grabbed my flashlight and headed to Lot D. The walk took about 8 minutes from the main terminal, past the budget rental kiosks, past the employee garage where second shift workers left their beat-up Chevys and Toyotas, past the chain-linked fence separating airport property from the drainage ditch beyond. Lot D stretched out under sodium lights that painted everything in shades of orange and black. Most of the spaces were empty at this hour, just scattered vehicles belonging to travelers on late flights or weekend trips. Then I saw them, the 17 designated spaces, each one occupied, just like Rita said. The Buick, the Caravan, the Firebird, others I hadn't cataloged yet, a Ford Taurus, a Plymouth Fury, a Volkswagen Beetle with original paint. They looked ordinary, completely, perfectly ordinary. I checked my watch. 1:47 a.m., an hour before the first protocol window. My boots scraped against loose gravel as I walked the perimeter, keeping my distance like the rules said. Nothing happened. No radio static, no headlights, no mysterious figures. Just parked cars under ugly lights, the distant whine of a jet taking off from the main runway. Maybe Rita was hazing me after all. Then I noticed the Firebird's side mirror. It was adjusted to face outward, toward the walkway, toward me. And in its reflection, I could see someone sitting in the driver's seat. If you like the stories, please hype the videos from a button like this just above the comment section. It helps the videos to get more reach and perform well. It would take just a few seconds and cost nothing, but would help the channel grow even faster. Thank you. Protocol 3 said maintain 15 feet. I was standing at least 20 feet from the Firebird. The figure in the mirror didn't move. Just sat there, facing forward like any driver waiting for someone to return with coffee or a forgotten phone charger. I could make out the basic shape: shoulders, head, hands resting on the steering wheel. My training from McConnell kicked in before I could think about it. Assess, identify, respond. I swept my flashlight beam across the Firebird's windows. Empty. Completely empty. I looked back at the side mirror. The figure was still there, visible only in the reflection. A woman, I realized. Dark hair pulled back. She wore what looked like a brown coat with large buttons down the front, the kind my grandmother had in old photos from the 60s. She was staring at something beyond the mirror's frame. Not at me. Not at anything I could see. My phone buzzed in my pocket, making me flinch. Text from Rita. Stay clear of D112. Report when you finish rounds. The Firebird was in space, D112. I backed away slowly, keeping the car in my peripheral vision. The woman in the mirror didn't turn her head, didn't acknowledge my presence at all. When I reached the perimeter walkway, I finally broke eye contact. My hands weren't shaking. That's what bothered me most. After 2 tours, I'd learned to compartmentalize the weird stuff, file it away for later processing. But this felt different than finding a suspicious package or tracking potential threats on base. This felt like looking at something that wasn't supposed to exist in the same reality I occupied. I completed my rounds of the other lots, checked the painted kiosks, verified that the shuttle buses were locked up for the night. Normal tasks. Grounding tasks. By 2:30 a.m., I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Then, I had to go back to Lot D. Protocol 1 said stay on the perimeter between 2:47 and 3:13. I had 17 minutes to finish my patrol before that window opened. Plenty of time. I walked faster than usual, sweeping my flashlight across rows of ordinary vehicles. A Nissan with Texas plates, a Mazda covered in bumper stickers from Kansas State, a Jeep with mud splattered up the sides. The 17 designated spaces were quiet. No figures in mirrors, no radio static, no headlights. Just cars sitting exactly where they'd been sitting for decades, defying every logical explanation. I was halfway through when I heard it. Music. Faint. Crackling. Like it was coming from underwater. Big band music. Trumpets and clarinets playing something swing era. My grandfather used to listen to stations like that, back when he was alive. KMUW out of Wichita State sometimes played oldies, but this sounded wrong. Too degraded. Too distant. The Dodge Caravan in D89. The music was coming from inside. Protocol 2 said don't investigate, but I was already moving toward it, drawn by the sound of Glenn Miller or Tommy Dorsey playing through speakers that shouldn't have power after 30 years. 15 feet away, I stopped. Through the caravan's windows, I could see the dashboard radio glowing amber. The dial was tuned to a frequency that didn't exist anymore, KWBB, which had gone off the air in 1987, according to my quick mental math. The song ended. A voice crackled through. Temperature in downtown Wichita is 42 degrees on this November evening. We've got more music coming up after these messages from our sponsors. This is KWBB, your big band station. A commercial started. Something about victory bonds and war rationing. 1943. The radio was playing broadcasts from 1943. I checked my watch. 2:43 a.m. 4 minutes until the protocol window. The smart thing would have been to leave right then. Head to the south exit, file my report with Rita, let someone else deal with whatever physics-defying nonsense was happening in Lot D. Instead, I took out my phone and aimed it at the caravan. Protocol 5 said no photographs. but I needed proof. Needed something tangible to show that I wasn't losing my mind out here on the night shift. The phone's camera app opened. I centered the caravan in the frame, finger hovering over the shutter button. Through the screen, I could see the interior clearly. The amber glow of the radio, the vinyl seats, cracked from age, the steering wheel, and sitting in the driver's seat, a man in the fedora and overcoat. He wasn't there when I looked with my naked eyes. Only through the phone's camera could I see him, solid as anything real. He was reading a newspaper. The pages dated November 17th, 1943. His lips moved slightly, like he was sounding out the words. Then he looked up. Right at me. Right at the phone. His mouth opened. He said something I couldn't hear through the glass and the decades between us, but I could read his lips clearly enough. Run. My phone went dead. Not dead battery, just gone black. The screen cracked in a spiderweb pattern despite being in a protective case. The radio in the caravan cut out mid-song, leaving only silence. 2:47 a.m., my watch read. The protocol window had opened. Every car in Lot D turned on their headlights at once, not just the 17 designated vehicles. Every single car in the lot, maybe 50 total, blazing to life like someone had hit a master switch. The orange sodium lights overhead flickered and died, leaving only the harsh white glare of headlights crisscrossing in the darkness. Protocol 4 said leave immediately through the south exit. I ran. My boots pounded against asphalt as I sprinted toward the exit, weaving between the parked vehicles. Behind me, I heard car doors opening. Not one or two, dozens of them, slamming shut in rapid succession like dominoes falling. Footsteps echoed in the lot. Multiple sets, all moving in perfect synchronization. I didn't look back. Every instinct from my combat training screamed at me to maintain forward momentum. Get to the exit. Get to safety. The south exit was 50 yards ahead, marked by a yellow sign that was barely visible now that the overhead lights were out. The footsteps got closer. 30 yards. Something grabbed the back of my jacket, just for a second, just enough to make me stumble. I jerked forward, the fabric tearing, and kept running. 20 yards. Hands reached for me from between parked cars. Gray hands, translucent in the headlight beams, grasping at empty air where I'd been a moment before. 10 yards. I burst through the exit and onto the sidewalk beyond, my lungs burning, that metallic taste flooding my mouth that comes from pushing too hard too fast. When I finally stopped and turned around, Lot D was dark again. No headlights, no footsteps, no hands reaching from the shadows. Just a normal parking lot at 3 a.m, silent except for the distant rumble of a departing flight. My phone was still cracked, still dead. The back of my jacket had a tear running from collar to hem, the edges frayed like something had tried to rip it off me. I walked back to the terminal on shaking legs, every shadow making me flinch. Rita was waiting for me in the break room, 2 styrofoam cups of coffee already poured. She took one look at my torn jacket and gestured to the chair across from her. "Protocol 5, she said. Not a question. I sat down, wrapping both hands around the cup, even though the coffee was too hot to drink. I took a photo, or tried to, and there was someone in the caravan, a man from the 40s reading a newspaper. He told me to run. I set the cup down, noticed my fingers were leaving damp prints on the styrofoam. Then everything went to hell. Headlights, footsteps, something grabbed my jacket. "Show me your phone." I pulled it out. The screen was still fractured, black as a dead tooth. Rita took it, turned it over in her hands, then dropped it into the trash can beside her desk. "Hey, you're getting a new one. Company will reimburse you." She leaned back in her chair, which creaked under her weight. The designated vehicles don't like being documented. Cameras short out, film gets exposed, even those old Polaroids just show static. We learned that back in the 70s when Channel 3 tried to do a Halloween special about the airport. What happened to the news crew? Nothing permanent. A lot of equipment failures, some unexplained footage. One cameraman quit the business entirely. Rita drank her coffee like it was medicine. You violated Protocol 5. That's why they reacted. The headlights, the doors, all of it. That was them making a point. Who's them? The passengers. She said it simply, like she was talking about the weather. The ones who never boarded Flight 891. They're still here, still waiting for a plane that left without them 62 years ago. I wanted to laugh, wanted to walk out, drive home to my apartment on East Douglas, sleep for 12 hours and wake up to discover this was all some weird dream brought on by gas station sushi. But my jacket was torn, my phone was destroyed, and somewhere in Lot D, 17 cars were sitting exactly where they'd been since Kennedy was president. Why don't they leave? I asked. Rita was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than I'd heard it before. Because they don't know they're dead. I didn't sleep much that day. Kept thinking about the man in the caravan, the way he'd looked at me through the phone's camera. The newspaper he'd been reading had a headline I'd glimpsed for maybe half a second. Ali's advance in Italy. Back when that paper was printed, my grandfather would have been 19 years old, stationed somewhere in the Pacific. Rita would have been, -10 years old. The world those passengers knew was gone. Roosevelt was president, gas was rationed, you could buy a house for $5,000. And they were still sitting in a parking lot in Kansas, waiting for a flight that would never arrive. I tried calling my sister in Hutchinson around noon, realized my phone was in Rita's trash can, and had to use my laptop instead. Emily picked up on the third ring, her face pixelated on my webcam. "You look terrible," she said. "Night shift." Mom called. She wants to know if you're coming for Thanksgiving. It's October. She likes to plan ahead. Emily shifted the camera angle. Behind her, I could see my nephew's toys scattered across the living room floor. "You okay?" "You sound off," I almost told her. Almost explained about the protocols and the ghost cars and the passengers who didn't know they were haunting themselves. But what would I even say? Emily was an accountant. She dealt in numbers, spreadsheets, tax codes, not radio broadcasts from the dead. "Just tired," I said. "Tell Mom I'll be there." After we hung up, I sat in front of my laptop for another hour, searching for information about Flight 891. Most of what I found matched Rita's story. Continental Airlines, November 1963. 18 passengers who checked in but never boarded. The airline had investigated, issued refunds to the families, filed reports with the FAA. But there was nothing about where those 18 people went. One message board post from 2019, buried 6 pages deep in a forum about Kansas history, caught my attention. My grandmother worked ticket counter at Eisenhower in the 60s. She always said something was wrong with Lot D, that people would walk toward the terminal and just vanish between the light poles. Airport management made her sign an NDA. She took it to her grave. I closed the laptop and tried to sleep. 3 nights passed before I had to patrol Lot D again. Rita switched me to the short-term lots for my next 2 shifts. Easy work, mostly dealing with travelers who'd parked in 30-minute zones and forgotten about the time. On my 4th night back, she handed me a new phone still in its box. "Don't photograph the vehicles," she said. "I know. Dale." She caught my arm before I could leave the break room. "If you need to transfer to day shift, I can arrange it." nobody would blame you. I thought about it. Day shift meant working under the sun, dealing with normal problems, never having to set foot in Lot D after dark. It meant sleeping through the night like a regular person, maybe picking up a second job on weekends, living a life that didn't involve 1940s radio broadcasts and passengers who didn't cast reflections. "I'm good," I said. Rita nodded slowly. "Your funeral." The phrase hung in the air between us. Lot D looked the same as always. The 17 vehicles sat in their designated spaces, ordinary as anything. I started my patrol at 1:15 a.m., keeping to the perimeter like Protocol 1 required when I was anywhere near the 247 window. A Chevy Impala had parked in D23, blocking one of the designated spaces. The Buick LeSabre that normally occupied D47 was sitting half in D46, angled wrong, like someone had tried to move it and given up. That wasn't right. The designated vehicles never moved. I checked my watch. 1:33 a.m. An hour before the protocol window, plenty of time to investigate. I approached the Impala carefully, shining my flashlight through the windows. Empty. Rental car paperwork on the passenger seat, the keys still in the ignition. Someone had parked here recently. I could see condensation on the inside of the windows, smell the faint trace of cologne that hadn't dissipated yet. The Buick was a different story. Its front bumper was crumpled against the concrete parking stop. Hood buckled slightly. Both doors were open, hanging at odd angles. The interior light wasn't working, leaving the cabin dark despite the overhead sodium lamps. I pulled out my flashlight and swept it across the interior, blood on the steering wheel. Fresh blood, still wet enough to gleam in the beam. Protocol 6 said if I found a boarding pass near the designated vehicles, I should place it under the wiper. Nothing about what to do if I found blood. The boarding pass was sitting on the driver's seat, torn in half. I leaned in close enough to read it without touching anything. Continental Airlines, Flight 891, Wichita to Dallas. Departure, 6:15 p.m. Date, November 17th, 1963. Passenger, Fletcher, Vernon. The date the pass was printed wasn't 1963, it was yesterday. Fresh ink, crisp paper, a QR code in the corner that definitely didn't exist in the 60s. Someone had printed this boarding pass yesterday, using Continental Airlines branding from 60 years ago, and left it in the car that wasn't supposed to move. I backed away from the Buick, suddenly very aware of how isolated Lot D was at this hour. The main terminal was 8 minutes away on foot. The nearest security camera was pointed at the short-term lots. Nobody knew I was out here except Rita, and she wouldn't check on me until my shift ended at 6 a.m. That's when I heard the engine, not from the Buick, from somewhere else in the lot. A car starting up, rough idle, exhaust pipe rattling. I turned toward the sound and saw headlights flare to life in space, D112. The Firebird. Its headlights cut through the darkness, painting long shadows across the asphalt. The engine revved once, twice, a muscle car roar that shouldn't have been possible from a vehicle that had been sitting dead for decades. Protocol 4 said leave immediately if a vehicle's headlights turn on by themselves. I was already moving toward the south exit when the Firebird's driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. The same woman I'd seen in the side mirror 3 nights ago. Brown coat, dark hair. Everything about her slightly faded like an old photograph left in the sun. She stood beside the Firebird, one hand still on the door, looking around Lot D like she was searching for something. Then she saw me. Her mouth moved. I couldn't hear what she said over the Firebird's engine, but I could read her lips clearly. "Have you seen my plane?" I turned and ran. I made it to the south exit before the Firebird's engine cut out. When I looked back, the woman was gone. The headlights were dark. Everything appeared normal again, like the past 3 minutes had been a hallucination brought on by too much coffee and not enough sleep. But my legs were shaking. My heart was hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. And somewhere in Lot D, a woman who'd been dead for 62 years had asked me about her plane. I pulled out my new phone and called Rita. It rang 4 times before she picked up. What happened? No greeting, just straight to business. The Firebird. Headlights came on. Woman got out. Asked about her plane. The words tumbled out faster than I could organize them. There's blood in the Buick. Fresh blood. And a boarding pass from yesterday with Flight 891 information on it. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you now? South exit. Stay there. I'm coming to you. She hung up before I could respond. I waited under the yellow exit sign, watching Lot D from a safe distance. The 17 designated vehicles sat motionless in their spaces. Normal. Ordinary. Harmless. Except the Buick was still angled wrong, still crumpled against the parking stop. And in the dim light, I could just barely make out something on its windshield that hadn't been there before. A boarding pass, tucked under the wiper blade. Protocol 6 said I should place found boarding passes under the wipers. But I hadn't touched this one. Someone, or something, had done it for me. Rita's truck pulled up 15 minutes later, a beat-up Ford Ranger that had seen better decades. She got out wearing the same uniform as me, her hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. "Show me," she said. We walked back into Lot D together. Rita carried a heavy mag light that she swept across the pavement like she was searching for tripwires. When we reached the Buick, she stopped about 10 feet away and aimed the beam through the driver's side window. The blood was still there, dark and wet on the steering wheel. "Vernon Fletcher," Rita said quietly. "The salesman. He owned this car. The boarding pass had his name on it. They're getting stronger." She moved the light to the boarding pass under the wiper. Used to be you'd only see them during the protocol window. Now they're manifesting outside it, interacting with the physical world. Why? Because someone's been feeding them. Rita turned to look at me, her face harsh in the mag light's backwash. "Not you. This started before you got here. About 6 months ago, day shift noticed a guy hanging around Lot D. Tall, thin, wore a suit that looked expensive. He'd walk between the designated vehicles, talking to himself. Security asked him to leave a few times, but he always came back. Who was he? Nobody knows. No ID, no rental car, no record of him booking any flights. He just showed up 3 or 4 times a week, always around noon, always doing the same circuit through the lot." She walked closer to the Buick, careful not to touch it. From 2 weeks ago, he stopped coming. Same day we found the first boarding pass. The modern one? Yeah. Printed on fresh paper, dated current year, but listing Flight 891. We thought it was a prank at first. Some aviation history buff with a weird sense of humor. Rita crouched down, examining the blood without getting too close. Then the designated vehicle started showing signs of a recent use. Warm engines, adjusted mirrors, fresh tire tracks. "They're waking up," I said. "Or someone woke them up." Rita stood, brushing dust off her knees. "Either way, we've got a problem. The protocols were designed for passive haunting. Entities that repeat the same patterns without awareness or intent. But if these passengers are becoming active..." She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. A jet roared overhead, so low I could see its landing lights painting white streaks across the clouds. We both looked up automatically, watching it descend toward the main runway. Normal airport operations. Planes landing and taking off every hour. Passengers coming and going. The whole machine functioning exactly as designed. Except for the 18 people who never made it onto Flight 891. "What do we do?" I asked. "Follow the protocols. Don't engage. Report anything unusual." Rita started walking back toward the perimeter. "And hope whatever's happening runs its course before..." The caravan's radio turned on. Same crackling big band music as before, pouring out through closed windows like the glass was just a suggestion. Rita grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. "What time is it?" she hissed. I checked my phone. 2:44 a.m. 3 minutes until the protocol window. "We need to leave," Rita said. "Now." But I was staring at the caravan, at the amber glow of its radio dial, at the silhouette visible behind the steering wheel, the man in the fedora. He wasn't reading his newspaper anymore. He was looking right at us, and his mouth was moving again. "Wait," I said. "He's trying to tell us something." "Dale Dash." I walked toward the caravan. Protocol 3 said, "Maintain 15 feet. Don't make eye contact. Don't speak to them." I stopped exactly 15 feet away and pulled out my phone, activating the voice recorder. The man's voice came through tinny and distant, like he was speaking from the bottom of a well. Not supposed to be here. The man in the suit, he changed something, opened a door. We can see through now, see what we became, what we lost. Static crackled across the audio. The radio station switched frantically. Big band to country to talk radio to nothing but white noise. "He promised us passage," the man continued. "Said if we waited just a little longer, if we were patient, our flight would arrive. But the flight came and went. Came and went. We're not waiting anymore. We're going to board the next one, whether there's room or not." 2:46 a.m. Every headlight in Lot D flared to life. Not just the designated 17. Every single vehicle, maybe 60 cars total, their beams intersecting in a grid of harsh white light that turned the night into a photographic negative. The overhead sodium lamps exploded in sequence. Pop, 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 raining glass and hot metal onto the asphalt below. Rita yanked me backward as a chunk of lamp casing crashed down where I'd been standing. Car doors began opening, not all at once like before, but in a wave, starting with the designated vehicles and spreading outward. The Buick's doors hanging crooked, the Firebirds opening wide, the Caravan's side door sliding back on its track. People emerged, 18 of them, faded and translucent in the headlight glare, moving with purpose for the first time in 6 decades. They wore the clothes of their era. Fedoras and overcoats, wool suits and church dresses. One woman in a pillbox hat that Jackie Kennedy would have recognized. Some carried luggage. Others held boarding passes. All of them were walking toward the terminal. "They're making a run for it," Rita breathed. "They're going to try to board a plane." Protocol 3 said don't speak to them. Don't make eye contact. But they weren't paying attention to us anyway. They walked past like we were the ghosts, their focus entirely on the distant terminal building, where warm light spilled from the windows and the promise of departure gates waited. The woman from the Firebird led the group. She still clutched her boarding pass, the paper yellowed with age but somehow intact. As she passed, I caught a whiff of perfume, something floral and old-fashioned, the kind my grandmother used to wear. Behind her, the man in the fedora from the Caravan walked with a slight limp, favoring his left leg. A younger man in the Navy uniform carried a duffel bag. A family of 4 moved together. Mother, father, two small children who couldn't have been more than 6 and 8 years old. They all looked normal, human, real. Until you noticed their feet weren't quite touching the ground. "We have to stop them," Rita said. "How?" "I don't know. But if they reach the terminal, if they try to board an active flight." She pulled out her phone, dialing a number with shaking hands. "Airport security. This is Rita Brennan in Parkin. I need all gates locked down immediately. Code gray, lock D. Yes, I'm serious. Do it now." The passengers were 50 yards from the terminal entrance, moving in their strange floating walk, determined to reach a destination 62 years out of date. Behind them, their vehicles sat empty, doors hanging open, radios playing music from eras long past. 2:47 a.m. The protocol window had opened fully, and somewhere in the distance I heard a plane's engines spooling up for departure. Rita's call went through. I heard her shouting instructions about gate lockdown, emergency protocols, clearing the terminal. On the other end, someone was arguing with her, probably pointing out that there were 3 active flights preparing for departure, that you can't just shut down an airport because parking enforcement had a bad feeling. The 18 passengers didn't care about bureaucracy. They moved across the lot in their perfect formation, feet hovering inches above the asphalt, boarding passes held like tickets to salvation. The woman in front, Amy Hollister, I remembered Rita saying, the college student going home for Thanksgiving, walked with her shoulders back, confident, like she'd done this route 1,000 times before and knew exactly where to go. Maybe she had. Maybe for 62 years, she'd been walking this same path in her mind, rehearsing the journey from parking lot to terminal, playing out the trip to Topeka that never happened. "They're not going to stop," I said. Rita lowered her phone. "Security's mobilizing. ETA 3 minutes. That's not enough time." We watched the passengers cross into the rental car area, their forms flickering slightly as they passed under the one functioning streetlight still standing. The 2 children held their mother's hands, their faces turned up toward the terminal, like pilgrims seeing Jerusalem for the first time. The father carried both their suitcases, matched luggage from Sears, circa 1960. "We could block their path," I suggested, "stand between them and the door. And then what? They're not physical. They'll walk right through us. You saw the blood in the Buick. They're physical enough when they want to be." Rita considered this. Behind us, more car doors were opening, not just the designated 17 anymore, but others scattered throughout Lot D. Vehicles that had been parked normally, belonging to current travelers, were now responding to whatever force the passengers had awakened. "The man in the suit?" Rita said suddenly. "You recorded what the fedora guy said?" I pulled out my phone, replayed the audio. The voice crackled through, opened a door. "We can see through now, see what we became, what we lost." "He didn't just feed them," Rita said. "He broke the barrier. The protocols kept them contained in Lot D, kept them cycling through their haunting without awareness. But he made them conscious, made them remember. Why would anyone do that? Same reason people do anything stupid." Rita started walking toward the passengers, her mag light held low. They wanted to see what would happen. I followed her, keeping pace as we angled to intercept the group before they reached the terminal entrance. Airport security would arrive soon, but they'd be dealing with a situation they weren't trained for. You can't handcuff a ghost. You can't pepper spray someone who's been dead since the Beatles were still together. The passengers noticed us. Amy Hollister stopped, the entire group halting behind her like a string of cars on a train. Up close, I could see details I'd missed from a distance. The wear on her coat sleeves, the scuff marks on her saddle shoes, the way her lipstick was slightly smudged at the corner of her mouth. She looked exactly like what she was, a 20-year-old kid heading home from school, wearing her best outfit for the flight. "Please move," she said. Her voice was soft, polite. "We're going to miss our plane." "Your plane left," Rita said. 62 years ago. "No," Amy shook her head. "We're right on time. It's 5:47 p.m., November 17th, 1963. Flight 891 boards at 6 p.m., Gate 7. I checked my watch. 2:51 a.m., October 14th, 2025. "You've been waiting a long time," I said carefully. "But the flight you're looking for is waiting for us." The man in the fedora stepped forward. Vernon Fletcher, the salesman. His face was earnest, desperate. The gentleman in the suit explained everything. "We missed our boarding window because we were confused, disoriented. But there's another flight coming," he promised. "What gentleman?" Rita asked. "Tall man, very distinguished. He found us in the lot, told us we'd been forgotten, that Continental Airlines owed us passage." Vernon clutched his newspaper tighter. "He said if we manifested properly, if we made ourselves visible at the right time, we could claim seats on the next Dallas-bound flight." "When?" I asked. "When did he tell you to do this?" "Tonight." Amy's expression was pure faith. "He said tonight, between 2 and 3 a.m., when the veil is finished. We're supposed to reach the gate before the window closes." Behind them, the Navy serviceman was checking his watch, a wind-up model on a leather band. "We've got 9 minutes," he called out. "Gate 7, he said." Rita and I exchanged looks. Gate 7 was in Terminal B, the older part of the airport. It had been closed for renovations 3 months ago, sealed off with plastic sheeting and caution tape. There were no flights boarding there, unless someone wanted these passengers to think there were. "It's a trap," I said. "Whoever this man in the suit is, he's not trying to help you." "You're lying." The mother with the 2 children stepped forward, her voice sharp with the kind of anger that comes from being patronized. "We know what we saw. We know what he promised. After 60 years of sitting in those cars, watching planes take off without us, do you really think we'd pass up this chance?" Her children stared at me with hollow eyes. Whatever innocence they'd had in life had been worn away by decades of confused existence, trapped between worlds. "Rita," I said quietly, "we need to call this in to someone. FAA, police, I don't care who. But if these passengers reach an active part of the terminal..." A scream cut through the night, not from the passengers, from the terminal building. We all turned. Through the glass walls of the main entrance, I could see people running. Security guards in their brown uniforms, travelers with rolling suitcases, a janitor abandoning his mop bucket. They were fleeing from Terminal B, from the closed-off section where renovations were supposedly happening, where Gate 7 was located. "He's there," Amy said. "The gentleman. He's opening the gate for us." The 18 passengers started moving again, faster now, gliding across the pavement toward the terminal entrance. Rita grabbed my arm, pulling me along as we ran to keep up. "Whatever's happening in there," she said between breaths, "it's connected to them. The man in the suit must be trying to complete something. A ritual, maybe. Or breaking what's left of the barrier." We reached the terminal entrance just as the passengers phased through the glass doors without opening them. Inside, the main concourse was chaos. Travelers huddled against the walls, pointing toward Terminal B. Security guards stood in a cluster near the rental car desks, arguing with someone on a radio. The passengers moved through the crowd like they weren't even there. People shivered as the group passed, rubbing their arms, but nobody seemed to actually see them. To the living, they were just a cold draft, an unexplained chill, but I could see them clearly. All 18, following Amy Hollister toward the closed terminal, toward whatever the man in the suit had prepared. "Gate 7, Rita said. "We have to get there first." We ran down the main concourse, past Hudson News and Starbucks and the security checkpoint where TSA agents were trying to calm frightened passengers. The signs for Terminal B pointed left, through a hallway marked "Closed for renovation. Authorized personnel only." Rita ducked under the caution tape. I followed. The hallway was dark, lit only by battery-powered work lights set up at intervals. Drop cloths covered the floor, and the smell of fresh paint mixed with something else. Something organic and wrong, like meat left too long in the sun. Ahead I could see the entrance to Gate 7. The door was open. And standing in the doorway, silhouetted against a strange amber light, was the man in the suit. He was tall like Rita had described, wearing what looked like an expensive charcoal three-piece. But as we got closer, I realized the suit wasn't quite right. The proportions were off, the shoulders too broad, the jacket hanging in ways that didn't match human anatomy. "Welcome," he said. His voice was wrong too. Multiple tones layered over each other, like several people speaking in unison. "The passengers are right on time." Behind us, the 18 passengers entered the hallway. Amy Hollister's face lit up when she saw the man in the suit. "You came?" she said. "You kept your promise." "Of course." The man smiled. His teeth were too white, too numerous. "Flight 891 is boarding now. Please proceed to the gate in an orderly fashion." The passengers moved forward eagerly, their decades of waiting finally over. But Rita stepped in front of them, spreading her arms wide. "Don't," she said. "Whatever he's offering, it's not what you think." The man in the suit laughed. "Dear Rita, still trying to enforce protocols that were obsolete before you were born. These passengers deserve their flight." "They deserve peace," Rita shot back. "Not whatever hell you've prepared for them." "Hell?" The man tilted his head. "No, I'm offering them exactly what they want. A plane, a destination, an end to waiting." Through the open door of Gate 7, I could see what was behind him. It wasn't a boarding gate. It was a staircase descending into darkness, and at the bottom, something was waiting. Something vast and hungry, with too many edges and angles that hurt to look at directly. The amber light emanated from it, pulsing like a heartbeat. The passengers couldn't see it. Or maybe they didn't want to. They saw only the promise of departure, the end of their vigil. "They're going to walk right into it," I said. Rita's hand found mine, squeezed hard. "We can't let that happen." "Can't you?" The man in the suit stepped aside, gesturing toward the open door. 18 souls, unclaimed for 62 years. Do you know how rare that is? How valuable? They're mine now. I fed them the truth, woke them up, gave them purpose. The least they can do is pay the fare. Amy Hollister was 3 feet from the door. I did the only thing I could think of. I pulled out my phone and took a photograph. The flash went off. For a moment, everything stopped. The man in the suit froze mid-gesture. The 18 passengers halted their forward movement. Even the thing at the bottom of the staircase seemed to pause, its amber pulse stuttering like a skipped heartbeat. Then my phone exploded. Not metaphorically. The battery ruptured with a sharp crack, and the device burst into flames in my hand. I dropped it, watching it clatter to the floor where it hissed and spat sparks across the drop cloth. "You fool," the man in the suit said. His voice lost its layered quality. becoming something thin and reedy. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I looked at the passengers. They were staring at the phone, at the smoke rising from its melted casing. And slowly, so slowly, their expressions began to change. Amy Hollister's face crumpled. She looked down at her boarding pass, really looked at it, and I saw the moment she registered the date. November 17th, 1963. The realization spread across her features like ink in water. "We missed it," she whispered. "We missed the flight. No, no, no." The man in the suit moved toward them, his movements jerky now, the human disguise starting to slip. "You're about to board. Right now. Just walk through the door." The date. Vernon Fletcher's newspaper fell from his hands, pages scattering. The paper says 1943, but that can't be right. I bought this today. I bought this. His voice trailed off as memory and reality collided. The mother with the 2 children pulled them close, her face draining of what little color it had. "How long?" she asked. "How long have we been waiting?" "It doesn't matter," the man insisted. His suit was rippling now, like fabric over something that didn't have the right number of limbs. "The gate is open. Your flight is here. Just board dash dash." "There is no flight," Rita said. She stepped forward, positioning herself between the passengers and the door. "There never was." "He's been lying to you." The Navy serviceman pushed through the group, moving close to the doorway. He looked down the staircase into the amber light, and I saw his jaw tighten. "That's not a plane," he said flatly. "What the hell is that?" "Passage," the man in the suit said. His voice was desperate now, the pretense crumbling. "I'm offering you passage somewhere, anywhere. Better than sitting in a parking lot for eternity." Eternity. Amy's voice broke on the word. She turned to look at the other passengers, at the children who should have grown old, at Vernon who should have sold his last vacuum cleaner and retired, at all of them who should have lived and died naturally. "We're dead. We've been dead." "You're unclaimed," the man corrected. "Stuck between. I can fix that. I can send you somewhere, give you purpose. You want to feed us to that thing." The Navy serviceman pointed at the staircase. "I saw enough in the Pacific to know a predator when I see one." The man in the suit's face twitched. His mouth split wider than it should, revealing those 2 white teeth. "They're mine. I woke them. I gave them consciousness. They owe me." "We don't owe you anything," Amy said. The temperature in the hallway dropped. Not gradually, all at once, like someone had opened a freezer door. My breath came out in white clouds. Frost crept across the drop cloths, spreading in crystalline patterns. The 18 passengers were changing. Their forms grew more solid, more defined. The translucent quality faded, replaced by something harder, angrier. "You took 62 years from us," Vernon said. His voice had changed too, losing the hesitant politeness. 62 years of sitting in those cars, confused and alone. We could have moved on. We could have found peace. But you kept us trapped. "I didn't trap you," the man protested, backing toward the door. "The protocols did. I freed you. You made us aware of what we lost," the mother said. Her children stood on either side of her now, their small faces hard as stone. "You showed us everything we missed. Every birthday, every Christmas, every moment we should have had. And then you tried to sell us to that thing." The man in the suit stumbled. His human form was disintegrating, revealing something underneath that was all wrong angles and translucent flesh. "You're making a mistake. Without me, you'll just go back to the cars, back to waiting, forever." Maybe, Amy said. Or maybe we'll find our own way out. The passengers moved as one, not toward the staircase, toward the man in the suit. He tried to run, made it maybe 3 steps before Vernon caught him by the arm. The salesman's grip was solid now, real enough to grab and hold. The man in the suit screamed, a sound like metal tearing, as the other passengers closed in. "Dale," Rita said urgently. "We need to go. Now." But I couldn't look away. The passengers were dismantling the man in the suit, pulling him apart piece by piece. He wasn't bleeding. Instead, that same amber light leaped from the seams where they tore him, spilling across the floor like liquid gold. The thing at the bottom of the staircase reacted. The amber pulse quickened, became frantic. A sound emerged from the doorway, deep and resonant, making my teeth ache. "It's calling for him," I said. "Let it call." Rita grabbed my arm, pulling me backward. "Whatever happens next, we don't want to be here for it." The man in the suit's screams grew higher, more frantic. The passengers were methodical, efficient. The Navy servicemen held him steady, while Vernon and Amy worked at removing whatever passed for his limbs. The mother shielded her children's eyes, but didn't stop them from watching. 62 years of waiting. 62 years of stolen time. They were taking payment. Rita and I made it back to the main concourse before the hallway collapsed. Not physically. The walls and ceiling stayed intact. But something else collapsed. Some invisible structure that had been holding the space together. I heard it more than saw it. A sound like breaking glass, amplified 1,000 times. The door to Gate 7 slammed shut. Through the small window, I could see the amber light flaring once, twice, then dying out completely. The passengers were gone. The man in the suit was gone. Whatever had been waiting at the bottom of those stairs was gone too. Airport security finally reached us. 5 guards in brown uniforms looking confused and scared. The lead guard, name tag read Jenkins, looked us over with suspicion. "Someone reported screaming from Terminal B," he said. "You two know anything about that?" "Renovation accident," Rita said smoothly. "Some equipment fell. We came to investigate." "And?" "Hallway's clear. No injuries. False alarm." Jenkins didn't look convinced. But what was he going to say? That he'd heard reports of ghost passengers trying to board a flight from a closed terminal. That parking enforcement had somehow gotten involved in a supernatural incident. He made us fill out an incident report anyway. Standard procedure. By the time we finished the paperwork, it was 4:15 a.m. We walked back to Lot D in silence. The 17 designated vehicles were still there. Same spots, same angles. But something was different. The air felt lighter. The oppressive weight that had hung over the lot was gone. I approached the Firebird in space D112, staying 15 feet back out of habit. The driver's seat was empty. The side mirror reflected only the parking lot behind me. No mysterious figures. No women in brown coats. The radio was silent. Rita walked over to the Buick in D47. The blood on the steering wheel was gone. So was the crumpled bumper, the hanging doors. It sat perfectly aligned in its space, pristine and untouched. "They moved on," she said softly. "Finally. Because they got revenge. Because they got choice." Rita ran her hand along the Buick's hood. The man in the suit made them conscious, but tried to control where they went. Once they dealt with him, they could decide for themselves. "Where do you think they went?" "I don't know. Wherever people go when they're ready." She pulled out her phone, checking the time. "Your shift ends in 2 hours. You should probably write up a report." "About what?" ghost passengers attacking an interdimensional con man. About routine patrol, no incidents. Rita smiled slightly. That's the thing about working at an airport. Weird stuff happens, you document it if you can, and then you move on. Nobody wants to hear the truth anyway. We started walking back toward the terminal. Behind us, Lot D sat quiet under the sodium lights. The 17 vehicles remained, physical anchors to a tragedy that had finally found resolution. "What about the man in the suit?" I asked. "What was he?" "Something that feeds on trapped souls. There are things that exist in the spaces between life and death, looking for opportunities. He found one here." Rita paused at the edge of the lot. "The question is whether there are others like him." "You think there are?" "I think airports are thin places. People coming and going, emotions running high, lives in transition. Perfect conditions for things to slip through." She looked at me. "You handled yourself well tonight." "I violated Protocol 5. Twice." "Sometimes the protocols need to be broken. Just don't make a habit of it." We reached the break room, and Rita poured 2 cups of coffee from the pot she'd made hours ago. It was burnt and bitter, but I drank it anyway. "One thing I don't understand," I said. "The boarding pass in the Buick. The one dated yesterday with Flight 891 information. If the man in the suit was trying to lure them out, why leave evidence?" Rita was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled something from her pocket. A boarding pass, crisp and new. Continental Airlines. Flight 891, Wichita to Dallas. Departure, 6:15 p.m. Date, October 14th, 2025. "Because he wasn't just targeting them," she said. "He was advertising. Letting other entities know that the barrier was broken, that souls were available for harvest." "How many did you find?" 37. One for each vehicle currently parked in the long-term lots. Rita tossed the boarding pass into the trash. "I collected them all before my shift ended yesterday. Didn't want anyone else finding them and getting curious. You knew this was coming." "I suspected. The signs were there. Warm engines, fresh tire tracks, radio broadcasts from the wrong decades. Something was building." She drank her coffee. "I'm just glad it's over." But as she said it, I heard something. A car engine starting up in Lot D. We both looked at each other, then ran. We burst through the terminal doors and sprinted across the employee lot. The sound of the engine grew louder as we approached the Lot D. Not the muscle car roar of the Firebird, but something newer. A 4-cylinder sedan, maybe. Rita had her mag light out before we reached the perimeter. She swept it across the lot, looking for the source. There. Space D-134. A silver Honda Accord, Kansas plates. Definitely not one of the original 17. The engine was running, exhaust puffing white in the cold, pre-dawn air. But nobody was in the driver's seat. "That car wasn't there during my last patrol," I said. "Check the registration sticker." I moved closer, staying cautious. The sticker showed current tags. October 2025. Fresh parking receipt on the dashboard, dated 3 days ago. This was a real vehicle belonging to a real traveler, not a ghost from the 60s. So why was it running by itself? Rita came up beside me, aiming her light through the passenger window. The keys were in the ignition, turned to the on position. The radio was playing. Not big band music this time, but contemporary country. KFDI, a station that was definitely still broadcasting. "Someone left it running," Rita said. "Maybe they were in a hurry to catch their flight." "For 3 days?" She didn't answer. We both knew that wasn't right. Then I saw the boarding pass on the passenger seat. Continental Airlines. Flight 891. Wichita to Dallas. Departure 6:15 p.m. Date October 11, 2025. 3 days ago, the same day the car had parked here. Rita, I said slowly, you collected 37 boarding passes yesterday. But how many cars are currently parked in long-term? She pulled out her tablet, accessing the parking management system. Her face went pale as she scrolled through the data. 63, she said. We're short 26 boarding passes. Or the man in the suit placed them after you did your sweep. We looked at each other, the same thought occurring to both of us. What if he hadn't been working alone? What if there were more of them? More entities that fed on trapped souls, and the man in the suit had simply been the first to act? The Honda's radio cut to static. Then a voice emerged, male, professional, exactly like the Continental Airlines announcements from the 60s. Now boarding flight 891 to Dallas Love Field at Gate 7. All passengers, please proceed to the boarding area. This is a final call for flight 891. The engine revved higher. It's trying to drive itself, Rita said. The Honda lurched forward, tires squealing against asphalt. But something was wrong with its movement. It jerked left, then right, like a puppet being manipulated by someone who'd never driven before. It crashed into a parking barrier, backed up, tried again. Other engines started, not just one or two, dozens of them, spread throughout Lot D. Every vehicle but had a boarding pass, every car whose owner had been marked by the man in the suit's advertising campaign. They all roared to life simultaneously, headlights blazing. They're trying to reach the terminal, I said. Whatever the man in the suit woke up, it's still trying to collect. Rhea grabbed my arm. We need to shut down the lot. Close the exits. Keep them contained until... A Toyota Camry burst through the barrier between Lot D and the employee parking, sparks flying from its undercarriage. It was moving faster now, more coordinated. Learning. Behind it, a Ford Explorer and a Mazda CX-5 followed, their movements smoother, more purposeful. They were heading for the terminal. Call security, Rita shouted. Tell them to evacuate the building. Tell them... The ground beneath us shuddered. Not an earthquake. Something else. The asphalt cracked in a perfect circle, maybe 30 feet in diameter, centered on the 17 designated spaces. Steam or smoke poured from the fissures, carrying that same organic rot smell from Gate 7. The original 17 vehicles, the Buick, the Firebird, the Caravan, all of them, sank into the ground. Not falling, but being pulled, disappearing into darkness that shouldn't exist beneath a parking lot. In their place, something emerged. It started as an outline, a suggestion of shape made from amber light and shadow. Then it solidified, taking form in the spaces where the ghost cars had been. It was tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that bent at joints that didn't correspond to any anatomy I recognized. The thing the man in the suit had been serving, the entity at the bottom of those stairs, it hadn't left. It had just been waiting. The passengers, Rita breathed. They didn't kill the man in the suit. They fed him to it. The entity's form rippled, and I heard that deep resonance again, the sound that made my bones ache. But this time I understood it. Not words exactly, but meaning that bypassed language entirely. Payment accepted. Contract fulfilled. Harvest continues. The possessed vehicles converged on the entity, drawn like iron to a magnet. The Honda Accord I'd been standing next to lurched forward, driving straight toward the amber light. When it hit, it didn't crash. It was absorbed, pulled into the entity's form, and disappearing. One by one, the marked vehicles drove themselves into the thing. Each time, it grew slightly larger, more solid, feeding on the cars, on the belongings inside, on the residual life force of the travelers who'd parked here expecting to return. "It's harvesting them," I said. "Not the passengers, the living people who left their cars here. It's collecting their connection to this place." Rita was already running toward the maintenance shed at the edge of the lot. I followed, watching over my shoulder, as another car disappeared into the entity. The amber light pulsed stronger with each vehicle consumed. The shed was locked, but Rita had keys. She yanked open the door and disappeared inside, emerging 30 seconds later with a red 5-gallon gas can. "What are you doing?" "Fighting fire with fire." She unscrewed the cap, started splashing gasoline across the asphalt between us and the entity. "These things feed on trapped energy, on stagnant places. You know what they can't stand." "What?" "Change." She pulled out her lighter, an old Zippo engraved with Air Force insignia. Destruction, chaos, everything that breaks their carefully maintained feeding grounds. "Rita, that thing is 30 feet tall and made of something that shouldn't exist. So we make it stop existing." She flicked the lighter, flame dancing in the pre-dawn darkness. "You got a better idea?" I didn't. She dropped the lighter. The gasoline caught instantly, flames racing across the asphalt in a bright orange line. The entity reacted, not with sound, but with that same bone-deep resonance, this time feeling like alarm. The remaining possessed vehicles swerved away from the fire, their coordinated movement faltering. One crashed into a light pole, another spun out, tires smoking. The flames reached the spot where the 17 designated spaces had been, where the entity was still manifesting. The amber light flickered, dimmed. Rita was already pouring more gasoline, creating a perimeter around the thing. "It's anchored to this location," she said, "to the spaces where the passengers waited. If we destroy those anchors..." The entity lunged. Not physically. It couldn't cross the flames. But something reached out, a tendril of that amber light, stretching toward Rita. I tackled her sideways, both of us hitting the ground hard as the tendril passed through the space where she'd been standing. Where it touched, the asphalt turned black. Not burned, corrupted, like something had reached into reality and deleted part of it. "New plan," I gasped. "Run." We scrambled to our feet and ran toward the south exit. Behind us, the flames spread, consuming the old asphalt, the painted lines, everything that marked Lot D as a maintained space. The entity shrieked, not with sound but with pressure that made my ears pop. More tendrils lashed out, tearing chunks from reality itself. Where they struck, I saw glimpses of somewhere else. Amber voids filled with shapes that hurt to perceive. Spaces that existed outside normal geometry. A tendril caught the maintenance shed. The building collapsed inward, folding in on itself like a paper bag, being crushed by an invisible hand. Rita grabbed my arm, pulling me through the exit, just as another tendril carved through the spot where I'd been standing. We kept running, not stopping until we reached the main terminal. When I finally looked back, Lot D was engulfed in flames. The entity was still visible through the fire, but it was smaller now, dimmer. The possessed vehicles had stopped moving, their engines dying one by one as the connection to their controller was severed. Airport fire trucks were already screaming toward the lot, red lights flashing. Security personnel were evacuating the terminal. In the distance, I could hear sirens, police, more fire trucks, probably news crews getting word of a major incident at Eisenhower. Rita leaned against the terminal wall, breathing hard. "That's going to be hell to explain." "Electrical fire," I suggested. "Faulty wiring in the overhead lights." "In a parking lot? You got something better?" She almost smiled. "No." We watched the fire trucks deploy, watched water arc into Lot D, washing away the flames and whatever remained of the entity. By the time the sun came up, turning the Kansas sky pink and gold, the lot was just a scorched patch of asphalt, surrounded by caution tape. The 17 designated spaces were gone, burned away, erased, whatever anchor they'd provided finally destroyed. Rita checked her phone. Shift ended 20 minutes ago. You heading home? Eventually. Got to deal with airport management first, write up reports, probably get suspended pending investigation. She looked at me. You? I thought about my apartment, about trying to sleep after everything that had happened, about whether I could ever look at a parking lot the same way again. I'm going to call my sister, I said. Tell her I'll definitely be there for Thanksgiving. Rita nodded. Good idea. We walked back toward the employee entrance together. Two people who'd just fought something from beyond reality with gasoline and a Zippo. Behind us, firefighters were still working, and airport operations was scrambling to redirect long-term parking to Lot C. Nobody was talking about amber lights or possessed vehicles or entities that fed on trapped souls, which was probably for the best. Some things people don't need to know about. The official report called it an electrical fire caused by corroded wiring in the underground utility conduits. Nobody questioned the explanation, even though parking lots don't have underground utility conduits. Airport management was just relieved to have a story that didn't involve the words supernatural or lawsuit. Lot D was closed for repairs. They stripped away the charred asphalt, dug down 6 feet, and poured fresh concrete over whatever remained. The new lot opened 2 weeks later with bright LED lights and fresh paint. No designated spaces. No vehicles that had been sitting for decades. Rita took early retirement. She'd been planning it anyway, she said, and the incident gave her the perfect excuse. On her last day, she handed me a thin folder marked Protocols, Lot D, Revised. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one sentence. If anything feels wrong, trust your instincts and leave. That's it? I asked. That's all you need. She picked up the box containing her desk belongings, photos, coffee mug, a small cactus that had somehow survived 20 years in the break room. The old protocols were about containment, about managing something we didn't understand. But you can't manage things like that. You can only survive them. What if it comes back? Then you'll handle it. Rita paused at the door. You did good, Dale. Better than I would have at your age. You fought it with gasoline and a lighter. Exactly. At your age, I would have tried to reason with it. She smiled slightly. You learn, eventually, that some things can't be reasoned with. They can only be burned. She left. I never saw her again. Management assigned me to permanent night shift in the short-term lots. Easier work, they said. Less responsibility. I didn't argue. Some nights I'd walk past the entrance to what used to be Lot D, now rebranded as Lot B-2, and I'd listen for the sound of engines that shouldn't be running. The lot stayed quiet. I made it to Thanksgiving. Emily's place in Hutchinson, turkey and cranberry sauce, and my nephew showing me his new dinosaur toys. Normal family stuff. My mom asked about work and I told her it was fine. Boring. Nothing ever happens at an airport at night. She seemed satisfied with that answer. I drove back to Wichita on Sunday evening, taking Highway 96 through fields that stretched empty under gray November skies. About halfway home, I noticed the car behind me. Silver Honda Accord, Kansas plates. It had been there since Hutchinson, maintaining the same distance, never passing or falling back. Could have been coincidence. Lots of people drive between Hutchinson and Wichita on Sunday nights. But when I pulled off at the gas station in Haven, the Honda kept going. I watched it disappear down the highway, and for just a moment, I could have sworn I saw someone sitting in the passenger seat. Someone holding a boarding pass. I got back in my truck and sat there for a while, engine running, heat blasting against the cold. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Lot E needs attention. Similar patterns emerging. R. Lot E employee parking, where second shift workers left their cars, where mechanics and baggage handlers and janitorial staff parked before their overnight shifts, where people came and went but sometimes didn't come back. I deleted the text, started driving toward the airport anyway, because Rita was right. Some things can only be burned, but someone has to be there to light the match. Someone has to watch the lots at night, to notice when cars sit too long in the same spaces, when engines run without drivers, when boarding passes appear for flights that left decades ago. Someone has to follow the protocols, even the new ones, especially the new ones. I pulled into the employee lot at Eisenhower just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that looked too much like fire. My shift didn't start for another hour, but I clocked in early, grabbed my flashlight, and headed toward Lot E. That yet some vehicles had been sitting there longer than they should. I could already smell jet fuel in the air, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the faint sound of radio static playing music from another era.